right now. Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
All right, JT, thanks very much. Good evening, everyone, and welcome inside the Fan Cave. 412-575-2600. That always is the number to call. Hit us up on X at KD Pomp, at Chris Mueller, PGH. Chris is up at 93.7 The Fan, home of the PM team, every day 2 to 6. And Chris, interesting day, and I just want to, before we get into Steelers stuff, Todd Monken. That was a sort of an upset choice for me in Cleveland. I knew he interviewed, but I didn't think they were going that direction. They chose him. Jim Schwartz wasn't happy. Reportedly left the building, said he wouldn't go on, even though he has 1 year left on a contract. Just your thoughts about what Cleveland did with their head coaching opportunity.
Well, it seems like, as many things turn into with the Browns, it became a big mess. I don't really think Andrew Berry up there, the general manager who survived the Kevin Stefanski purge, necessarily should be still in his post, but he is. And Jimmy Haslam, we know, likes to meddle in these sorts of decisions. I'd heard people say that Berry liked Shieldhouse, which suggests that, at least in my opinion, he's got the right idea, and that Haslam just continued to gum up the works. The funniest thing is that apparently Monken, who was on the staff when Freddie Kitchens was the head coach of the Browns, used to, according to this blurb I'm sure you and many others have seen, he would go down onto the field before games because he was the OC, but Freddie Kitchens was calling the plays, basically. And Monken would tell all the other team's coaches what a dysfunctional mess it was in Cleveland, and now he's their head coach. So, hey, at least you know you've got somebody that's going in there clear-eyed about what he's facing. But as much as people here might be frustrated with the way the McCarthy hire came about, I think the Browns' head coaching search has been the most embarrassing one in the NFL, and it reached a very oddball conclusion.
It certainly did. I was surprised by that. But it also makes me wonder about Chris Shula and Nate Shieldhouse. Both of those guys were hot commodities, a week, 10 days ago. Names being thrown around, people want to interview them. They went through the process. All of a sudden, it doesn't appear to be any takers. I know that it looks like Clint Kubiak could be somebody for both or one of the other teams out there, the Raiders or the Cardinals. But what happened to Shula and Shieldhouse? You just think it's too early in the process? Maybe they need more time to prove that they're capable of being that head coach, or what else could be the reason?
So Kevin Demoff, who's one of the Rams' top executives, rebutted something that Pony tweeted, essentially saying that a source had told him that Shula had bombed his interview on Zoom with the Steelers and suggested that that was made up or that that was not true. But with the lack of interviews that Shula has gotten where he has become like a serious candidate, the lack of progression to serious candidate for these other jobs, it does have me scratching my head about him and kind of wondering how he's done in these settings. Jerry Dulac answered in his chat in the PG today a question about Shieldhouse, basically with the notion that maybe internally the Steelers liked him as a candidate but thought he was a year or two away and needed a little more seasoning. Bob, if that's true, just for argument's sake, they should have hired Nate Shieldhouse, because I would have put up with a year or two of a guy who was a little green for the job if they thought he was the right guy and that the market for him is going to be very hot in a year or two. So that's the only other explanation I can come up with as to why he particularly hasn't gotten a job, because it feels like he's actually the more desirable of those two candidates. In Shula's case, I do wonder if he's just not doing a very good job or not suggesting good assistance or what in some of these interviews.
But the bottom line is the Steelers, if they had gone with Shieldhouse, would have been an offensive choice. They'd end up getting an offensive choice in Mike McCarthy, which leads us to our KDK.com/Select poll of the night, brought to you by Penn West University. Who is the best head coach in the AFC North right now? You have McCarthy, you have Zach Taylor, you have Todd Monken, who at this point has 0, or actually now 4% of the vote, and Jesse Minter, who not many people know about in terms of can he handle that role. But as far as McCarthy, he didn't waste any time. It looks like he's going to bring some guys in. Patrick Graham is the name out of Vegas, a defensive coordinator. He'll be here tomorrow from what I've seen. And it looks like he's going to get that job. The Vegas Raiders, when I think of them, I don't think of too many things that are good about what they do. However, if you read inside the numbers and some of the people he's had to learn from, including Bill Belichick and some others, he seems like a pretty good hire, although there are a lot of other guys out there. I thought Weaver might be one of those guys since he interviewed here.
I'm wondering why. I know Schwartz is under contract to the Browns. Why not cool your heels and wait? And I know he runs a 4-3 in Cleveland, but base defense is a little overrated anymore as far as the front. If you think Schwartz is maybe a really good candidate, and maybe McCarthy doesn't, maybe you could have waited out that situation. There's Weaver. There's other guys who are out there who are bigger, more established names. My thing with Patrick Graham is he came up through the Belichick sort of coaching tree, and then he just jumped from one team, from the Patriots to the Giants, and I didn't go back and look and try to figure out, was he let go by Belichick? He was his linebackers coach. He worked with McCarthy for 1 year as a linebackers coach and as a defensive run game coordinator, Bob. Here's the thing about him. I've seen all the stats you've seen. I believe it was Ted Wynn from The Athletic who basically said he got more out of those Raiders defenses in 23 and 25 than the Raiders were putting in financially. And that's all well and good, but the teams he's been on have lost double-digit games when he's been the defensive coordinator 6 out of 7 years. That's not all on him, but certainly doesn't reflect all that well. And I think if people are assuming that if he gets the job, well, look, he's got all this extra, talent to work with. Does he? Cam Hayward, he's in his late 30s now. TJ Watt, wrong side of 30. They have a lot of guys who are 28, 29, 30, 31, and that is not a young defense. They have Harmon as a nice building block. They have Porter Jr., I think, is an obvious building block. Peyton. Okay, Benton had a bounce back here.
Edge rushers are pretty talented and young, I think.
I understand that. Well, is Nick Herbig going to get any kind of a full-time role? Is he going to continue to be situational? I think my point is here, and I don't think I'm out on a limb here or out on a ledge, a defense that was 26th in the league in total defense is not one that you can dream on necessarily or suggest that Patrick Graham, if he gets the job, is going to come in and work miracles with. That's all.
Right. I hear that. We got a lot to talk about. We'll do it and invite you to call us. I see the board's loaded right now. We'll take those calls at 412-575-2600 as we continue live right here on KDKA Plus and 93.7 The Fan. It's the Sports Call. All right, welcome back. This is our Xfinity tweet of the night from Steelers history. On this day, the Steelers drafted Joe Green in the first round, 1969, and then Jack Ham in the second round, 1971. Also, it's interesting that all these head coaches of late have been hired on the same day, January 27th, as was the case yesterday with Mike McCarthy. Bob Pompeani, Chris Mueller, we're going to go to the lines. We have a lot of people want to talk, beginning with Jerry and Franklin, who's our first caller. Hey, Jerry, go ahead.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, I have a little bit of a mixed feeling about McCarthy as the head coach. I think I'm going to try to be positive about it. I think if he gets an opportunity to work for a year or two with Howard and with Mason Rudolph, see what they have there. There's not any quarterbacks in this draft from what I'm hearing. If they get one next year, let him work with a quarterback for a few years. He's 62, I think, so give him a chance to see what he can do for a few years, build a staff, and then maybe promote from within, and somebody will be able to come in and have a good quarterback.
Well, Jerry, the name you didn't mention there was Aaron Rodgers, and I thought it was interesting today that Tom Arth was brought back from Tomlin's staff. He's a quarterback coach. All those guys really like Tom Arth, and I think he knows a lot about the position. But he also is good friends, and I think Aaron Rodgers likes working with him. So I'm reading tea leaves here, so I'm not sure where I'm going with this. But Aaron Rodgers has got to make his decision up. It looks like they're waiting for him. Apparently, Jeff Hathorn told you guys today, Chris, that a deadline was given. I think there should be a deadline. You can't wait for 5 months waiting for him to make up his mind. So what do you think will happen with Aaron Rodgers specific?
So just specifically what Jeff told us on the air was that Omar Khan had sort of mentioned offhandedly, and this is before Mike Tomlin stepped aside as Steelers coach. This was, I think, in Jeff's timeline, Bob, about a month ago, that they needed a decision that was a lot quicker on Aaron Rodgers, or at least it was several weeks ago. They needed a decision quicker on Rodgers this offseason than they got last time, where he just kind of waited the whole process out. I thought that Mike McCarthy made it pretty clear what he thinks of Aaron Rodgers when he got asked point blank about whether or not he'd like to have him back in a best-case scenario, and he said, definitely. Why wouldn't you? I don't see why you wouldn't. I think they do want Rodgers back as an organization. I think that ball is in Rodgers' court. I happen to think he's probably going to come back. That's just me. As for Will Howard, I will say this. I'm not going to do my usual Will Howard was a 6th-round pick. You guys have all heard me say that before. Here is one note of caution about McCarthy. I think it's very obvious he can run a legitimate, real, solid to good NFL offense. I don't think anyone doubts that. The last time he didn't have Aaron Rodgers or Dak Prescott as his main quarterback, he had Alex Smith in 2005 with the Niners when he was their OC. Smith threw 1 touchdown and 11 picks that year. They had the worst offense in the league. He also, by the way, wanted Smith over Rodgers. Then he leaves and takes the job to end up coaching Rodgers. I will just caution people that when he hasn't had, like, an upper room Hall of Famer in Rodgers, talent-wise, or Dak Prescott, who's no slouch himself, imagine me saying that as Judge Smales, he hasn't always had the greatest success.
All right, it's going to be interesting to see, and I think it'll happen before it ever gets to the summertime. So we'll see what that decision is, if he's going to make it, and if he does, that puts the Steelers in a position, okay, you bring him back, then you may not have an opportunity to see anything of Will Howard.
Why do you want him back if you're the Steelers,
What's
Bob?
that?
Like, in all honesty, why? In all honesty, and this isn't even meant to be, maybe it is meant to be mean, I don't know. Why do you want Aaron Rodgers back? I mean, I think you saw what he is and isn't capable of.
Right.
And
That's
we
why
know how
I
hard
thought,
it is
for
for guys who are statues to thrive. It should be, but it should be. It should be the end because, like, I don't know why we've suddenly gotten so unreasonable and just can't call it like we see it. I know I'm not saying you personally, but, like, broadly speaking, people can't just say Aaron Rodgers had a nice little 42-year-old season. He got to go out in a playoff game at the very least. Let's let this be over with. I don't know why you'd let a guy like that hold you hostage at this point.
I would tend to agree, and I think they have to solve that quarterback situation and at least sample the waters on other guys other than him. If he comes back, he is the starter. And while he still can zing the ball around, you saw the weaknesses, as you suggest, in some of the games that featured really good defensive fronts, and they put pressure on him, and it was hard for them to function as an offense. So all due respect to the man, and I think also Mike McCarthy was being a little diplomatic yesterday. I don't know how he's supposed to answer that. If he's not going to throw it out right off the bat. I knew that he wasn't going to do that, so we'll just see how this goes as it moves forward. Back to the lines. We got John and Butler joining us right now on the hotline. Hey, John.
Thanks for taking my call. I wanted to know what you think about the big three for the Penguins. Do you believe that they would trade one of them, or do you think they'll all retire as a Penguin?
I think they'll probably all retire as a Penguin. I think Malkin has said that he'd like to come back. I think he's having fun. He's, by the way, a plus 16. I don't think I've ever seen him as a plus 16 through 50-plus games in a season. He's playing a different kind of hockey, as is Carlson, Letang to some degree. And they're buying into what Dan Muse is saying. I think they're having fun. I wonder, though, Chris, when they get to the trade deadline, many people thought this was going to be a sell-all. Now I'm thinking maybe they're going to be interested in doing something. And if one of the guys is being talked about, Jason Robertson out of Dallas, he's 26. He's already established as a megastar, I think. I'd be interested to see what they'd be willing to come up with to offer to get him if they want him.
Tell Team USA that he's already established as a megastar.
Well, you know he is, right? I mean, look at what his numbers are.
I know he is. Listen, I know he is. I know he's a big-time player for sure. There's like no doubt about that. Obviously, there shouldn't be to anybody that watches anything outside of the Penguins that you know how good this guy is, even if you just watch the highlight shows. But I mean, they have managed to do sort of a real neat trick Kyle Dubas has pulled. He has gotten them a lot better across the board at multiple spots. I saw Josh Yohe break this down in a really concise way, while also making their system better. Do you really want to go for a big, splashy trade right now for this team, as well as they are playing, when I still think they are, not really like a super, super serious cup contender? I know the numbers, the regulation win percentage, all of that makes them look pretty good. Or do you want to keep going with the steady build? Because also, here's the other thing. You can kind of have your cake and eat it too, can you not? Because some of the best trades they have made in franchise history have been little deals in the margins. Like there have been deals where they've given up first-round picks or top prospects, and those guys have never amounted to anything. But they've made subtle little deals in their history that have ended up yielding great results. So why can't you do a little bit of that if you continue to play well up to the deadline?
You could. The only thing I'll say about that, if he were 30, I'd have that same opinion. He's 26, which makes him one of the youngest guys who's reached that superstar status, I think. And he would be somebody who I would be interested in. Again, it takes two to tango. What would they want in return is probably a lot. And I don't know what the Penguins would be willing to give them at this point. So that's something to watch moving forward. Let's go out to Matt in Butler joining us right now on the hotline. Hey, Matt.
Hey, guys. Good evening.
Hi.
Hey, the quarterback situation has to get under control for Pittsburgh, and it is not Aaron Rodgers. We've all seen that. We now know that. He can leave for a six-pack because it's going nowhere if they keep him back as the starter.
So then the question is, what do you do if you don't? You're going to have to bring somebody else in here, I think, just to fill out that roster. If that's the case, Chris, what do you think the most logical scenario is for the Steeler quarterback room?
If they don't bring Rodgers back, I mean, everyone's going to bring up, okay, then try to sign Malik Willis in free agency and see if he'll come here and McCarthy can continue what Matt LaFleur really started, sort of rehabbing that guy's career before it fell off the rails completely. And he looks really impressive. But this is going to surprise people who watch me on this show twice a week whenever this topic comes up. If you really say to Aaron Rodgers, thanks but no thanks, or he at least says, sayonara, I'm done, why wouldn't you, if we have heard so much from them internally about how much they like Will Howard and how bullish they are on him, let him be the man.
I agree.
Let him try to win the job. I will say this. I will put, plant the flag right here. I would rather watch 17 starts of Will Howard, not knowing how he will do or not do, than one start of Aaron Rodgers in 2026 for them.
And that's the only way they're going to find out. If that occurs, that would be the number one thing to do. And yes, they'd bring in somebody else, but you'll learn a lot about him in the process, and you can make future decisions because of it. We're due for a break. We'll take it. Joe, JB, and Steve will try to get you in next right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Go back to the phone lines before we say goodnight. It's Steve in Cannonsburg joining us right now. Hey, Steve.
Hi, this is, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Caller.
Go ahead.
Good. My biggest thing, I talk about all these quarterbacks and Aaron Rodgers and all that. They drafted Will Howard in the 6th round last year. They need to give the kid a shot. John Gruden loves him. Have you ever seen the interviews with John Gruden with Will Howard? I just wish they would really give him a legitimate shot to play next year.
Well, if Rodgers doesn't return, I believe that's going to be number one probably on their list, or at least a battle in training camp. So, we were talking about free agents and other quarterbacks out there. Aside from Malik Willis, we heard his name a lot. I mean, what other logical choice is there, short of some sort of veteran who's been around just for insurance purposes? Is there anyone else you would like to see them bring in?
I mean, not really, no. It's an unbelievably thin class of quarterbacks. It's a bunch of veteran retread, like insurance policy backups, like you say. Also, one note, John Gruden likes every quarterback he's ever talked to. I think the number he hasn't liked is much easier to count. He liked Nate Peterman, for crying out loud. He talked up Nate Peterman, who threw 5 picks in one half. I would not go by John Gruden's opinion as gospel truth because he likes every one of these players.
We're out of time on that note. Chris, thanks very much. As always, appreciate it. We'll see you back here tomorrow night. And thank all of you out there for watching. We do this show 7 nights a week. It's always better when you call us and air your opinions. 412-575-2600, the number to call. Good night. We'll see you again tomorrow night and at 11 on KDKA Sports.